I suddenly realized that Trevor Noah is kind of a genius, when Trevor Noah first started on Comedy Central, I was disappointed. I really liked Jon Stewart, and I thought that it was probably a affirmative action type, increasing diversity type move, rather than, based on his actual comedic or, talking skills. I continue. I like Comedy Central. I'd say I watch. Well, I mostly watch it online. I don't. I have cable. But nonetheless, Jon Stewart, was all about criticizing George W. Bush and the war in Iraq and the whole farce around weapons of mass destruction and Dick Cheney and that whole regime. And so things were changing. I can't recall exactly when the switch happened. I feel like it was during the Obama days. Nonetheless, I did enjoy some of the spots that Trevor Noah made. He sort of seemed like, I don't know, on the same level as other talk show hosts, really. Occasionally snickering and occasionally eye rolling, and the fact that he's South African was interesting because my family is from South Africa, and that was interesting for me. And not only that, and I'll just say that I think he has always maintained, truth to his South African identity. He's never pretended to be an American. I suppose in some ways. Okay, so if you kind of compare him to John Oliver, John Oliver is one of those Brits who firmly holds on to his Britishness. It's sort of part of his identity. Whereas I think Trevor Noah's accent is not that thick South African, but maybe it's partly because if you're from the UK, it's almost more of an accent of pride. People know it and it's immediately identifiable. Whereas the South African accent, well, first off, there's many of them. There is sort of almost as no strictly defined one. So, but then perhaps there was a little bit of, catering for his American audience, in the words that he chose. But with that said, I think that, he would make an effort to say, in this country you would say blah, 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 or whatever, and so I don't think that it was ever, a facade. And, anyway, like I said, watching him on video was mostly kind of like, snickering level entertainment while I'm eating my lunch type of thing. And I guess I learned to, enjoy what he put out there. And I probably thought, well, even if he was an affirmative action placement, he does have talent. And so, he has risen to the occasion. He's a good comedian, a good talk show host, and I would say I was a casual fan. And then this friend of mine, Mike, told me that he's going to be coming to Vancouver, and he's going to be performing at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre here. A couple of comedians went on first, and then he came out, and immediately, it was kind of interesting. I mean, I knew he wasn't that tall or whatever, but it was he was just kind of like this regular guy standing there, and first too, his presentation wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't like a sketch. This regular guy coming out to do a comedy sketch. So then he started up, and he's kind of making some jokes about. He made a couple jokes about Trump, and then and I said, yeah, but we're in Canada now, and he kind of started to talk a little bit about Justin Trudeau, and kind of made some jokes about Trudeau. Dressing up all in Indian garb when he went to India, and I guess he was trying to make a commentary on cultural appropriation, and but then he told this story about the time that I don't want to retell the whole story. He did two things, I guess. One thing is that he does this thing where he kind of sets up a joke. So he talked about Schadenfreude, and then he ended, 5 minutes later, kind of having this other guy use the word against him when he was laughing at him. And I guess one thing about it is the humor was all self-deprecating, So, I mean, when he usually does his bits online, he's usually kind of making fun of some politician or this or that, or making some commentary on, you know, social issues at the time, or whatever. Whereas comedy sketch is completely different. It's all self-deprecating humor, and but the levels that he stooped to, now that's the wrong way to put it, because it wasn't like awkward humor necessarily, although it was awkward. It was kind of like, you know, yeah, you feel cringy for him, but in a very hilarious way, you know, not like a hide under your seat kind of a, you know, Michael Scott type cringe, but in like just a uncontrollable laughing type of you know, humor. And I swear I laughed so hard. I probably have never laughed that hard in my life. I mean, I felt it here in my chest. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have a heart attack here. And you know, yesterday I read about this guy dying from sex with a sex worker, and the cause of death was something like extreme orgasm or something. And it reminded me of this laughing fit I went into during Trevor Noah, where I felt the pain here, all throughout here. I couldn't stop laughing, and everyone around me was, you know, laughing too. So I don't think anyone realized how dire, you know, this was for me. But I literally tried to like look away and think about boring, terrible things and whatever. But it really, yeah, it felt almost unsettling how out of control laughing I was. I just didn't know that someone could reach that extreme level of ridicule and humor and funniness. You know, it was just a kind of a life-altering experience for me, really. And yeah, I walked out of there, and luckily I didn't have a heart attack, and I mean I felt a little tired, but I was kind of okay about it. And but I suddenly realized that Trevor Noah is kind of a genius, you know. I mean, I could, you know, nitpick about elements of the joke. You know, some of the parts of the joke were almost a little bit dated by the time he told them, but it was still fine. It was, but more than that, just his delivery and his whole way of being was incredible. And he really, you know, like I said, brought about some kind of a transformation through his ability to make everyone laugh that hard. And so I don't know what has led him to announcing he's leaving Comedy Central. He's still a young man. I have high hopes for him and great expectations for him, but I am very, very solidly a Trevor Noah fan, and I just thought I would express that at this time.